How's it going, everyone? I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I'm AMS, and for today's video, I want to talk about a character I really enjoyed watching. He's really funny and goofy. He's literally the entire show's selling point. It's not a deep story that has a thought-provoking philosophy. It's literally just his personality and interactions with other characters that make this show really good. As you already know from the title, we are going to talk about Rimuru Tempest from that time I got reincarnated as a slime. I just finished part 1 of season 2, so I think that would be a good point to talk up to. And then afterwards give my thoughts on what's going to happen in part 2 and maybe try to predict some things that might happen in the light novels. By the way, that was your spoiler warning for the video, so let's get right into it. This is a really lighthearted show primarily because of the protagonist Rimuru. Now that's not the case for the whole show. It gets pretty serious every now and then, but Rimuru himself tends to keep his bubbly attitude throughout the series, which is what I enjoy the most about the show. It's Rimuru's personality and his interactions with others that really drew me in personally. First, I would like to talk about Rimuru's past life, cause yes, this show is an isekai, and focus on how his character was introduced. What I mean by that is how the show displayed his personality to us the viewers, and why those few minutes are so important. They give us an idea of what type of person Rimuru is and set up how he would act for the rest of the series. The show starts off with Rimuru, currently known as Satoru Mikami, meeting up with one of his co-workers named Tamura. Now, Tamura had a massive amount of respect for Satoru because he took care of him when he first started. Satoru even took some of the work off of his hands despite having a tremendous amount of work himself. Tamura wanted to introduce him to his fiancée and treat him to dinner. When he first met the fiancée Miho, he played a little joke on her by stating that he already knew of her. He told her she was famous from all the rumors. She suddenly freaked out and was curious as to what rumors he was talking about. Tamura calmed her down and let her know he was just messing with her. This small scene gives so much information about Rimuru's personality. It shows him as a lighthearted person who loves to joke around, and he takes care of those who work below him, like a less experienced co-worker for example. We also know he's well beloved by those co-workers, seeing how Tamura wanted him to meet his fiancée and was even treating him to dinner. As they were walking to the restaurant, a crazed man came out of nowhere and tried to stab Tamura. Satoru jumped in front of him and got stabbed instead. Afterwards, he would think stuff like, "It hurts and I'm feeling cold." Then hear a voice say stuff like "pain nullification acquired" or "temperature resistance acquired." As he was bleeding out, he took Tamura's hand, looked him dead in the eye, and said potentially the greatest final words anyone has ever said that will forever be etched into the library of famous anime quotes as the greatest final words ever spoken. "Take the hard drive out of my home computer and dump it into the bath and make sure it's completely wiped." Like, this dude is literally dying, and his last thoughts were, "I need to erase everything on my computer to make sure no one ever sees my porn collection." Like, for real, man. Okay, back to the topic at hand. He regains consciousness not knowing where he is or even what he is. He recognized that his body is more liquid and blob shape instead of human shape. He also realizes that he doesn't have eyes since he can't see. He does figure out that he is a slime, and he gets information when his body dissolves something. He dissolved, or ate technically since he's a slime. Anyway, he ate the surrounding herbs and magic stones since they seem to have a lot of value. He knew this because he has a skill called Great Sage, which I believe is what was giving him all of the skills he acquired while he was dying. So we know he got this skill after he was fatally wounded. So Great Sage seems to be a skill that is pretty much a Google search engine in his head. It does also manage his skills and abilities when he acquires new ones. After exploring a while, he ran into an unknown creature who was surprised to see a slime just casually approach him. The currently unnamed slime, who later becomes known as Rimuru, jokingly called the person he just ran into bald, and it hurt him. The creature got angry, and Rimuru quickly apologized and told him he had no idea he could hear him, since he didn't have a mouth, or even eyes for that matter. When this creature learned that he couldn't see, he offered to give him the ability to see in exchange for Rimuru not fearing him and having to talk to him. Rimuru decided to agree and learned how to see by sensing the magicules in the area. When Rimuru got the ability to see, he saw a massive dragon standing in front of him. This dragon is known as the Storm Dragon Veldora, a true dragon who terrorized the world 300 years ago before being sealed away by the hero. Veldora had been bored and wanted someone to talk to, So Rimuru and Veldora spent some time talking about the world, including the existence of other worlders. Unlike Rimuru, who was reincarnated, these people have been summoned into the world via a magic ritual. More on them later. Now, the important part of this meeting is that Rimuru felt bad for Veldora because he was alone for 300 years, so he became friends with him. And in honor of their new friendship, Veldora decided to bestow onto Rimuru a name because he was unnamed at that point. Veldora even had Rimuru himself come up with a family name for the both of them. That's how Rimuru became Rimuru. Veldora gave him that name. And later on, we learned that when a monster gets a name, they receive magicules from the person who gave them that name, causing them to evolve and grow stronger. Rimuru then came up with the family name Tempest for him and Veldora. He chose that name because of Veldora, the storm dragon, because Tempest literally means storm. Afterwards, Rimuru wanted to find a way to free Veldora, so he had Great Sage analyze the seal. After learning it was going to take a while to break the seal, Rimuru devoured the seal and Veldora, and held it in the limitless void which was his stomach until the analysis was complete. From this scene alone, we see that Rimuru still has his bubbly attitude, despite dying and being reincarnated. He is still a nice person who takes care of others since he is trying to free Veldora. And we see him gain immense power, even though we don't know it at the time, from Veldora when he gave him his name. As of the end of part 1 of season 2, I don't know if giving Veldora a family name gave them a special ability. I doubt it, but if it did, if a family name gives you something like the ability to share magicule or skills, that would make Rimuru and Veldora stupidly OP based on where the anime left off. Okay, now that Rimuru has power, what is the first thing he does with it? He explores the cave, eating a variety of creatures to gain their skills, which is something a slime can do. Normally a slime would be too weak to compete with the other monsters in the cave, but Rimuru has a name, so he was several times more powerful than the other monsters. After gaining incredible power and a huge number of skills, he leaves the cave. He then goes on to subdue a goblin village with his presence alone. He was walking around with his magicule just leaking out of his body, which gave off a powerful presence, which caused the goblins to beg him to spare them. He didn't realize he came off as incredibly menacing and threatening with his magicule just fully exposed like that. Instead of fighting them, Rimuru acted kindly and caring for these weak-looking goblins, and even heard them out when they asked for help in their battle against the direwolves. Rimuru single-handedly turned the tide of battle, and in a few minutes managed to kill the leader and subdue the direwolves. Instead of killing or driving them out, he accepted the direwolves and had them live in harmony with the goblin tribe they were just at war with. And he even decided to give them all names. He didn't think much about giving them names, he didn't see it as a big deal. But when he announced it, they began cheering and celebrating. As I stated earlier, when a monster receives a name, they gain magicules from the person who named them, and they evolve into a stronger monster. Rimuru learned this after exhausting his magicule giving them all names and fell unconscious. After awakening and seeing their evolution, Rimuru worried that the power might go to their heads, so he gave them 3 rules to follow. Don't attack humans, don't fight amongst yourselves, and don't belittle other races. Again, Rimuru helped someone in need, ended a feud, and even established rules to make sure the people under him don't lose control and start treating others poorly. He then went to the Dwarven Kingdom in order to recruit some blacksmiths to help build better buildings and roads for his newly found village. Some stuff ended up happening and Rimuru got locked up in prison. He then overheard one of the guards say there was an accident and some people got hurt. Now, this is where the herbs Rimuru ate earlier come into play. Great Sage was able to synthesize a health potion from the herbs, and he offered the potion to the guards to heal their friends. Afterwards, the guard let him out of his imprisonment and introduced him to a highly skilled blacksmith he knew, and it turns out that the people he helped were the blacksmith's assistants. The blacksmith Kaijin was really grateful for Rimuru saving his friends, but he was unable to help Rimuru because he had a massive order to fill. Rimuru decided to help him by analyzing one of his swords and making exact copies of it using Great Sage. In order to thank Rimuru for helping him finish on time, Kaijin agreed to go to his village to help teach his people how to make shelter, armor, and swords. Afterwards, they went out for drinks to celebrate, but things turned ugly real quick when one of Kaijin's former subordinates, Vesta, showed up and stirred up trouble. After Vesta disrespected Rimuru, Kaijin knocked him out and got arrested for it. We then learned that Kaijin was a captain who worked directly under the king, but lost his position after Vesta experiment failed, causing a massive explosion. Vesta then put all the blame on Kaijin and got him removed from his position. Then Kaijin, his assistant, and Rimuru were tried by the hero king Geisel himself. Geisel wanted Kaijin to return to his service, but Kaijin refused, stating he already swore to help Rimuru. So Geisel decided to exile all of them from the Dwarven Kingdom. After returning home with the blacksmiths, Rimuru ran into some adventurers, and there he met Shion, an otherworlder from Japan just like him. She was known as a champion who was possessed by the flame spirit Ifrit. They shared life stories and grew close to each other. We also learned that Shion was summoned by a demon lord and forced into servitude. She was eventually saved by the hero and began emulating her. She spent the rest of her life saving others until the spirit Ifrit took full control of her body. Ifrit started going on a rampage until Rimuru devoured and separated him from Shion. Unfortunately, when Shion was summoned, her body was in bad shape, and she was going to die from the extreme amount of magicules in her system. That is, until Ifrit possessed her, allowing her to gain control of her magicules. Now that Ifrit is gone, she was dying. Her final wish was to rest in peace inside of the stomach of the second person who brought her life comfort, and that was Rimuru. After devouring her, he gained a human form he could transform into, and he then went around winning over all of the other creatures who lived in the forest, and even stopped a demon lord's rampage. All of this allowed his name to gain infamy, especially to the Dwarven King Geisel. Geisel decided to go and see what type of monster Rimuru was by challenging him to a duel. After exchanging blows, he saw Rimuru was highly skilled, but he was holding back due to his desire for peace. So Geisel asked Rimuru to form an alliance with his country, and the Rimuru Tempest Federation was born. Rimuru went from leading a small village to fully conquering the forest and earning the love and respect of all of its inhabitants. He was even able to enter into diplomatic discussions with the Dwarven King Geisel, and allowed his country to gain a powerful ally and trading partner. Now, Rimuru may be a slime, but mentally he's still human. He might have a Google search engine inside of his brain, but he doesn't know everything. He makes mistakes, as well as some poor decisions that seemed right at the time, but come back to bite him in the ass later in the future. He is a rather trusting person, but for a leader of a nation, being too trusting was a problem. He always took the word of other rulers and would even offer them highly valued goods. Geisel scolded him for his attitude and told him to become sterner, otherwise he was going to run into trouble in the future, which he did. He made alliances and opened up trade routes through Tempest, which took merchants and trading partners away from the Foulmouth Kingdom. This caused Rimuru to receive the spite of the Foulmouth King as well as the Holy Church, who despise monsters. As a result of his attempts to expand his nation, he caused severe problems for other countries, causing them to invade his kingdom and causing some serious casualties. Rimuru then learned that his soldiers were trying not to kill the humans to not violate any of his rules. The love and respect they had for him came back to haunt them. Rimuru blamed himself for the death of his citizens. If he didn't choose to be passive and friendly with everyone and focus more on keeping his guard up and being aggressive when he needed to, this may not have happened. Things worked out in the end, and Falmouth ended up facing Rimuru's wrath, so he definitely made a stern impression on other nations. After this, there was no way in hell anyone was ever going to try and get on Rimuru's bad side. Good news is, he's still the same person after all of this. He still treats others well and tries to help those in need, even if they were enemies at one point, like with Vesta. Vesta treated Rimuru like garbage when they first met, but after the alliance with the Dwarven Kingdom, Geisel offered Vesta service to Rimuru, and Rimuru gave him a full lab to do research for him. Vesta was sure Rimuru was going to treat him like crap, but he didn't. He actually treated him really well and gained his respect. It was the same with the Majin Milium. She helped sabotage Tempest by putting up an anti-magic barrier to help with Falmouth's initial invasion of Tempest. She did this on the orders of the Demon Lord Claymon, who was also inconvenienced by Rimuru. He had set up the birth of a new Demon Lord who was terrorizing the forest, but then Rimuru killed him, so Claymon set up Falmouth's initial invasion. Also, Claymon held Milium's heart, so she couldn't disobey him. When Rimuru learned she had a hand in the invasion of his country, he recognized he wasn't in the best mental state to pass judgment on her, so he had her locked away until he could think straight. In the end, he decided to save her from Claymon instead of punishing her. Rimuru is the type of person who would rather help people instead of condemning them. But if you come at him with the full intent of doing harm out of your own free will, he will not lie there and just take it. He will make sure you regret it and suffer dearly for it. Rimuru legitimately has one of the best personalities in all of anime. He's so goofy and lighthearted that simply watching his shenanigans puts a smile on my face. And after developing that connection to the character and seeing all of the warm and fuzzy scenes for most of the series, you get a chill down your spine whenever an emotional scene occurs. Rimuru does retain his trademark personality and caring nature despite all of the hardships he faces. And that's really enjoyable to see as the series goes on. He simply prefers spending his days lazing away in the hands of a beautiful woman instead of fighting in these massive battles and spreading pain and misery wherever he goes. And that's going to be it for this one, folks. I hope you guys enjoyed. I would like to thank you all so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, and remember to keep having fun. See ya!